All right, welcome back to the Lost Cryptids live show. Um, my co-host today is Dave, and my guest today is Val, the Gumshoe guy himself. Um, he's a ex law. Well, actually, why don't you give us your background and stuff, and what got you into Bigfoot?
Well, I spent 25 and a half years in the service, the public service, law enforcement. And I started out in the state police, went to the county sheriff, and then I ended up with the city. And in between then, I worked under dual capacities with the state and federal government as a task force agent. So toward the end of my career, I was also a licensed state private investigator as well. And towards the end of my career, I found myself needing to pay back, pay it forward, so to speak. And so I selected a person that had gone missing over 30 years, and I devoted my vacation time and sick time to find this individual. And I was assisted by a psychic medium, and some of the things that she told me, and this is a woman I never met before in my life. She was introduced to me. Confirmed for me that yes, this was something that I needed to do. This was part of my life, my calling, and therefore, based on the information that I got from her. Now, this is outside of the box. This is not orthodox law enforcement. I mean, that's not welcomed.
Right, using psychics and stuff.
Yeah, you don't do that.
No.
But such as it is, and the type of person that I am, I was always an unorthodox person. And so the message to me was, and she brought it to my attention, she told me that I was looking for somebody. And that raised my red flags when I heard this, because I don't know this woman. She introduced herself to me, but I didn't know her. She was a stranger. And when she told me that she had some things to tell me, excuse me, I listened to her. I listened to her tell me things. She warned me, cautioned me about some personal things. And the last thing that she said to me was, "You're looking for somebody." And when she said this, she looked sideways at me. And I've seen this look before in the course of my career. And like I said, it raised my eyebrows and it raised my ears when she said this. And she told me, she says, "I don't see this person here," meaning on this plane, meaning living on this earth. I don't see this person. I just see darkness. I just see void, a nothingness. But she says, "They know you're looking for them, and they'll let you know when they're ready to be found." That's exactly what she said. And I took that to mean that should I step off into this and look for this person? This is unofficial. This is not a part of a police record or anything. This is something that I took on, a personal journey. And so, and it comes with hazards. I knew that. You know, you start using somebody like this, you know, you're screwing with your career and stuff. But I was already feeling as though there were some major changes coming in my life. I didn't know what they were, just yet. But so I went home to think about that. I heard a lot of things from this woman, and she doesn't know me from Adam, but she was correct on a lot of things. But I guess working midnights for 15 and a half years, you learn to live. You live on a dime. You get sleep when you can. Your nutrition is poor, and I experienced fitful sleep sometimes. Times when I couldn't sleep, and sometimes I'd go into work maybe 2-3 hours, having worked almost 24 hours. This happened a lot. One night I was awakened from a sound sleep. One of the few times that I had a sound sleep, when I heard a man's voice calling me, and I mean my eyes were wide awake. I heard this with my own ears. I'm not a drinker. I'm not an individual that's predisposed to alcohol, a lot of it, or anything else. I mean, I'm just pretty much stone cold sober guy. But I know what I heard. Mm-hmm. And it took a while for me to reckon with this. And so in the preceding days, I picked up the phone and I called this old woman up in Ohio, and I woke her up at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning to me is midday, and I mean, but people that are 70 years old, they're probably in bed by 3 o'clock. But I woke her up and I asked her. I says, "Tell me again about your son. How did he go missing? When was the last time that you talked to him?" And we went through everything. 1, 2, 3. We went through everything, and I listened. It was one of those days when things were slow and I had the time, and I was patient. I was very patient, all ears. And she cried and she wept, and she told me the last time that she spoke with her son, the last words that he said. And when I was done, when she composed herself, I cleared my throat and I says, I just want to tell you something right here. I says, I'm going to make a promise to you. I'm going to look for your son. And I says, when I find him, I'll bring him back home to you. So what I did, not knowing that my life was, not knowing that my life was involving a major change, like I was getting ready to retire. I didn't know this. I knew that something was going on. I used up all my vacation time and all my sick time. I gave up to this goal, this promise that I made. I did this. This is paying it forward. This is taking something of mine and giving it to somebody to find peace. And that's what I felt I needed to do for all the great things that came to me and all the great things that I received over the 25 and a half years. I mean, I'm safe, I'm alive, I'm happy, I'm blessed. That's the way I feel about it. So, true to her word, I used DNA, and I went down to Ohio, took DNA samples from the sibling and the mother, a surviving sibling, and sent that back in. And of course, there was a 21 months later, there was a match. The problem with this whole thing, and this is going to lead me into Bigfooting and where I'm at today. Yep. So I had to go back and retrace where this individual was. And I had to look at hundreds and hundreds of missing, unidentified bodies that were found between Florida and Texas. This is the route that he took. Interstate 10, I didn't know this before, but it runs from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's I think it's the only interstate that runs straight through, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And all along the way, all these state parks, all along the way, it's just a dump ground for bodies. And at that time, I was listening to Pallades on the radio with his Missing 411. I listened to him when I was doing my research, my work for my job, which had nothing to do with Bigfoots, but it had everything to do with human beings, bipedal human beings, bad people. And so we talked a few times, myself and Pallades on the phone a couple times, because I understood he was a police officer too.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, back to this journey that I was on. I met a lot of good people along the way, and one of the individuals that I met from the Houston, Texas area was an older, retired female investigative journalist, and she was assigned to the crime reports for the Houston Chronicle, and she told me that during the time that this individual I was looking for disappeared, there were no less than 27, 28 serial criminals on the loose in that area, and that they did not tell the public this because the public didn't want the public to panic. So this is the kind of stuff that launched me into where I'm at now. And so 21 months.
Go ahead.
21 months later, I got the information that I found. I was able to identify this person, found him. He was a homicide suspect or a homicide victim, and the case remains closed to this day. I mean, it's open. It's not been closed. So once that was settled, another 6 months passed, and it took me that long to clear federal and state permits to transport human remains across state and federal lines. And once that was cleared, then I was able to deliver the remains of her son back to this family in Ohio. And I eulogized his service. They had a service for him. And so the next day I went into work and I retired promptly. And that's how this happened. Gave up my private investigator license and retired. Done.
Wow.
Fed up with it.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. Remains home back to his mother. Looks like you're breaking up there, Dave. All right.
So I go into meet with a friend of mine from school who is a professional archivist, and I asked them to pull up any information that they could on the on that Monroe Bigfoot monster, 1965, and they did. And I looked through all those reports and stuff. And then at that time, that was 8 years ago, I contacted Bob Daigle, met with Bob Daigle, and we went out several times together. And that's how I got started. So I consider that all. I got involved with Bigfoot, through a tragic happenstance, and that's how I got into it.
Yeah, you went out with Bob. Bob, he's actually the grandfather of Michigan Bigfooting.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of them.
Well, he's considered an icon. Him, Phil Shaw. There's a few others in Michigan, but really, those individuals are the individuals that are highly respected and sought after, throughout the state and stuff because of their early involvement in this.
Exactly. I've met Bob. He's a really amazing guy, and he's still trekking out in those woods, even at his age. And he's a wealth of knowledge. So you and him went out to go investigate some reports or something in the area. And you were walking in the woods. What happened?
Well, we'd been out before that, checking out reports and stuff. But on this particular day, and we'd been at Waterloo State Park several times, and even Pinckney State Park. Pinckney is adjoining Waterloo. This was July 2014. I retired on June 2012, and at that time I started applying those skills and theories and principles and stuff that I learned on the job to Bigfootery, meaning I'm profiling Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So in July, almost 2 years, less than 2 years, 2 years later, since the time I retired, I'm out with Bob. It was very, very hot. It was a hot summer. The deer flies and mosquitoes and gnats and everything else were thick in the area because it was humid.
Yep.
And we went through, we covered a couple agricultural fields until we came into another portion of the forest. And when we walked in there, again, the insects were incredible, but we noticed that acorns or something were flickering through the leaves, and we paused a couple times because Bob noticed it, I noticed it, but short of anything else, it was nothing but acorns falling from the trees. So we proceeded on, moved forward, and then we heard a loud report or a loud snap from a branch that broke, and then we really took notice because we both heard it. It was very loud, and it wasn't a twig, but it was a thick branch that snapped, and it wasn't far from our location. So we proceeded forward until we came to a group of trees. We noticed a large fallen tree, very large fallen tree. I don't think it was shoved down before we got there. I think it'd been there for some time, but it was very big. And on the other side of that tree was a large, it looked like a large collection of bramble bushes or something, very thick, but it looked like a tunnel. And it looked like a long, if you can imagine what a wasp nest looks like, but this is with brambles and bushes and stuff. It looked like it had a tunnel, like a hole, like a big dark hole in it. And Bob was on the other side of the tree, and he was on his hands and knees looking inside the Bigfoot nest, looking to see if there was anything in it. And at that point, I was standing on the opposite side of the fallen tree, and I was looking around, looking up in the trees, looking around, and then to my right shoulder, I've got this intense feeling as though something is watching me, gazing at me. And I look, and there's this being, this hairy being, like red hair, hanging off the side of a tree. It's got to be about 13 feet up off the ground on the side of a tree. And his hands are around it. I'm not quite certain how he's standing because I don't see the feet at this point. And I turned around, and Bob's got a little bit of a hearing issue anyway. He's not able to hear me if I talk low,
Mm-hmm.
but Bob was not able to hear me, and I was calling Bob, nothing. And then I turned around with my little cheap camera that I had, just swung around in a 180 degree arc and started snapping pictures. This was not on a video camera; it was a manual trigger camera. You see, when you're in law enforcement, you do the same thing. You go to a crime scene, you go to an arson, you go to a shooting, you go to a crime, and you got bystanders watching. You want to film them because chances are your suspect is right there watching. They want to see what's going on too. They want to see what you're doing, what you know.
That's right.
Using the same principle, I snapped a picture of that being and put it back in my pocket. And it seemed like a lot of time it seemed like a lot of time passed from the time that we were staring at each other. And the first thought that came to my mind was, "What the f? You know, are you kidding me already?" I mean, that's my first reaction. I'm not the type of guy to run around swearing and cussing and stuff. I detest that. But that was my honest to God reaction. I was shocked when I seen it. I then became defensive, and I called it a freak. I said, "You freak, you freak." It stood there staring at me, blinking its eyes, and there's no reaction. I thought maybe if that was a human being dressed up like that, maybe they would start laughing and say, "Hey, this is a joke" and stuff. But it wasn't a joke. And beyond that, this thing had to be 8.5 foot tall, very big, very tall. And I noticed on the face of this thing that it had a light pink complexion. It almost had a plastic sheen to it, and that's a kind of complexion that I notice on a lot of dead people. They got that shiny, glossy sheen to their face. So that was unusual to me, but I did notice that. I felt as though I felt very agitated, very annoyed. I was feeling all these feelings at the same time. It was just like a rush. And I just felt as though I just got the sense of a dark foreboding, like I had to leave there, like it was telling me to leave now, not when you feel like it, but now. And I had to motivate myself to get up and move because I felt as though I wanted to go to sleep.
So, Val?
That's interesting. Go ahead.
Go
Dave.
ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Great.
Volume is a little loud, Dave. It's a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little better. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So these feelings that you felt and what you experienced, would you say that these were your feelings? Were they transferred onto you? Were they given to you? Were they being broadcast onto you? How did all that work?
I spoke with Janice Carter about this because I felt as though I was thinking these thoughts, but we weren't speaking. I wasn't speaking to it. It wasn't speaking to me, but I was thinking this. And the answer that I got, the reply that I got from Janice, and we've had her on here, was that, and this is the first time I've ever heard this. Her response to me was that it was reading you. I says, "What do you mean reading me?" She says, "It was looking inside you to see what kind of person you were." Now, that sounds bizarre, and it was a little difficult for me to grasp, but you got to remember these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings are rushing at you at split second. It's like downloading a computer. If you download a computer, if you check your computer scan it for viruses and malware, you watch your documents. You watch your documents and all your files zip by. That's the way I felt. And everything that I've read, everything that I've studied, everything that I've seen since then of people that had similar encounters, they also say the same thing. It's like, and I think I told Janice, I felt as though I was intruded upon, as though I give somebody permission to look into my soul. I didn't give them permission to look into my head, but it was there. And that's...
And as a law enforcement officer of 20, 25 and a half years, you said, you've responded to major crimes, you've been to major incidents, you've been to things where, and I know it from working in the field as well, that you experience a lot of adrenaline on the job, and it's something that you learn to handle. And after a while, going to these major crimes calls does not seem much more than routine to you. How did this experience differ than you, for instance, going to a major crime, responding to a major crime as a detective, as a law enforcement officer?
Well, I could tell you that someplace here I've got an award for being involved in the shooting. In an undercover capacity, I found myself in a situation where I had a gun placed to my face because it was one of those things where things were going to go bad. And so I've seen multiple deaths during the major airliner crash in Detroit years ago. I've seen this. I've smelled it. You can taste it. But when I'm talking about this, and what I'm telling you that I experienced out there in my encounter, my personal feeling was that it was upsetting to me. It was very upsetting to me. In fact, I told you that I'd go out with Bob and stuff.
Right.
I wouldn't go out with Bob it took me another year to go back out there to Waterloo State Park. I just wouldn't go back.
Yeah, it's
It took me a year to get back. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. I've seen a lot of stuff, encountered a lot of stuff, but this is unworldly. This is not things that we're used to seeing. And when you're shocked like that, it's different if that thing would have said, "Hey, Val, I'm over here," and I looked over there and I see this thing. But it's that surprise shock that you get when you're not expecting something like that. You see it.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And the point being that you're a well-experienced law enforcement officer, detective with a lot of years under your belt, and had experienced a lot of things on duty and on the job, and this still was alarming to you. This encounter still alarmed you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is alarming, and one of the reasons why I started this Facebook group site is for people like me. When you experience something like that, where do you go? One of the hardest lessons I learned in my encounter was even your best friends, even your Bigfootery friends, they have a hard time believing that too, and that's a tough lesson to learn. So there's got to be some place for people to go where they can share these things and feel that they're not losing it, because they're really not. They're explaining stuff that occurred, and it's tough for the public, people that aren't aware of this, to deal with it.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people don't believe it. If you tell people you see Bigfoot, they laugh at you. I think most of them. But here you are, experienced law enforcement. And, it boggles the mind how they're around all our civilization as much as they are without so many people knowing about it and realizing it or believing it. And when it hits you, and it hits you hard, especially in your case, and it's interesting that you felt annoyed, like that you had a feeling of being annoyed, like. How usually when people encounter things or get scared or stuff, they don't feel annoyed. That's a weird feeling to have and pressed upon you. So yeah, there was one in the tree. You actually have a picture of this, and you have it in your group and stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, it wasn't alone. It was with another
There's two.
being up in the tree and stuff. So, I'm a chess player, and I look at strategy. I look at things in small bites, but I look at the symbolism. And really, when you look at the photos that I took, and you listen to the encounter that I explained, I always carry a weapon with me. I'm not going to lie, I always do, and it was with me that day. In fact, it was on my right side, so it would have seen my weapon on my right side. And that's why I found it fascinating when I spoke with Janice Carter, who told me that it was looking into my heart, looking into me, looking in my soul, I guess, or something. And it had to know that I wasn't there to harm anything. I don't harm anything. I'll step on a spider if I have to, but I mean, I'm not out there to harm anything. But
Exactly.
I don't even hunt anymore. But what I seen from this being was like a great strategist. It gave me an out. There's an old saying by Sun Tzu. Some say the world's greatest tactician, military strategist, that you never corner your enemy. Even in chess, you don't boastfully corner your opponent and tease and humiliate them. A humiliated enemy or a humiliated opponent is your worst enemy. Worst. Because you're fighting for your life. And I'm not about that. I'm not out there to harm anything. And it had to know that I wasn't out there trying to harm it. And I wasn't going to harm it. But I wanted to leave. And it left me an out. I mean, it could have came down the tree. I don't know what it would have done if it came down the tree. I'd probably have a heart attack or something. If that thing came down the tree, I mean, all I wanted to do was just leave. But on the way out of there, Bob and I stopped just long enough to take a picture of a 17.5-inch track print in the mud. 17.5-inch. No time to cast it. I mean, I just didn't want to picture something, running on all fours out of that woods coming towards us, because I swear to God, I'd have a heart attack right there. I mean, I just didn't want anything to do with that.
And this comes from, again, an experienced law enforcement officer. And you kind of, Val, you understate your experience and the things that you've done. In addition to have been in the state police, county sheriff, and city police, you were also on the History Channel as a subject matter expert in relation to organized crime. You were a lecturer at 2 colleges in relation to organized crime, and traveled around the United States also lecturing on the same topic. Now, using what you learned as a detective, you came up with your Gumshoe Guys website, and you came up with different criteria where you could pretty much profile Bigfoot in the same way you'd profile a serial killer. What are your 6 most important data points that you would consider in your databases? And I know you have 4 databases. One is Michigan, another is a U.S. database, a temporary database, and a reference database. But in your Michigan database, what would you consider your 6 most important data points?
Well, the 6 out of 116 data points that I use, that's each data point is criteria that I look for when I read a report. So my eyes are always scanning the reports for specific data. And the 6 points that I look for is camping, farming, hiking, hunting, motorist, and residential. Those 6 areas that I just named off are 6 areas that you'll always see in the Bigfoot report. You'll always see those 6 points. Now, within those 6 points, there's several subgroupings or subtitles that stem from that.
Yeah, and can you go over? Obviously, I think one of um, the most people, the way people see a Bigfoot is by driving and stuff. And others camping and stuff. What's the best way to see a Bigfoot? Is it driving? What's some of the activities to do, and where
Well,
should people go?
it's a fact. It's a fact. According to the data that I see in the Michigan database, that most Bigfoot reports are reported by motorists driving a car. Think about that. When you're a motorist, you're very mobile. You're at all different points of the state. That's when people see it. When you combined a motorist with specific days, specific times and months,
Mm-hmm.
you get really getting into the heart of the profile, the complete picture, and that's where you increase your chances of sighting. Now, a lot of people believe if you go out in the woods, you're going to go out there and hike, and you're going to find a Bigfoot and stuff. But actually, you take your motorist and you take your residential settings, and you combine those two together. My God, you got the whole database right there. There's more reports of
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot coming to people's houses or around their peripheral perimeters than if you were to go out and hike and look for this and look for that. That's a fact. There's more reports happening like that. So you combine those two together, and that's it in the heart.
That is very interesting because a lot of people would suspect that Bigfoot is in the wilderness, more rugged and not next to people's houses, or if so, they must be traveling, they must be passing through. But it seems like a lot of the reports that they're pretty seasonal and stuff, right? And
That's
usual time and dates and stuff.
that's what the data shows. Um, the data shows that the most active time for Sasquatches, and this is not only in Michigan, but it's across the United States and North America as well. Both of those databases, the numbers, the figures, although the U.S. North America database is much larger, very, very larger than the Michigan database, but the metrics are all the same. Everything lines up and matches identically.
Mm-hmm.
So between June, July, and August, that's your peak time for Sasquatch activity. Now, some people in the Bigfoot community believe that July is the mating season, or July is the time when the babies are born. I don't know if this is correct or not, but the data seems to show that more activity occurs in that time period. Remember, my initial encounter was in July,
Mm-hmm.
not April, not December, not anything else. It was in July.
So Val, are you saying that the Bigfoot migrate for their mating season, and that could be a reason for the movement?
I'm not certain. My theory is that they do move, they do migrate, and if they didn't, how did they get here in the first place? They had to have come here from someplace.
That's right.
We know that for a fact. So, given that as it may, I do believe that Michigan hosts what is called residents, resident Bigfoots that stay here all year round, that are very comfortable with the surroundings. They probably raise their young ones here, and when those young ones grow to be of young adult age, then yeah, they're going to wander out like nomad and find a suitable mate, and that's where we have the travelers moving in, moving out.
It only makes sense, it's what pretty much every animal and what people do. You know, you raise your kids and then you send them off in the nest in the real world to get their family and stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating. Pretty much like animals, you know, they have their babies in spring, and so maybe it could be when they're all moving around is looking for new mates and stuff, but it's when the babies are old enough to travel too, a lot better. So
now, one thing is interesting about fall time. Remember, that's hunting season.
yes,
And by the numbers, by the data, there's also a big spike in activity in the fall season. And that is also the greatest, that possesses, the fall season possesses the greatest possibility for confrontation between man and Sasquatch, because man and Sasquatch are competing against the resources. Man goes out to hunt deer, and Sasquatch subsist on deer. And it brings those two converging forces face to face to confront each other at some point. And this happens quite a bit. And that's why there's reports, you'll see reports of hunters downing a deer, shooting a deer, and a Sasquatch coming along and stealing it. You know, that's how the confrontation begins.
yeah, there's several reports of that, and there's a lot of native tales are they basically consider it theirs, or they you know, like to take half or whatever, and sometimes you know what I think happens when hunters go in the woods. You know, a lot of people are like, well, I've hunted there all my life, I've never seen a Bigfoot, right? And then they ended up seeing a Bigfoot, and because the Sasquatch are always watching these woods, and when these hunters come in, you know, there's certain areas that hunters can't shoot. You know, they can't shoot close to roads, they can't shoot towards houses. You know, they can't shoot next to buildings and towards people and stuff. So these Sasquatches could very well go up to more residential spots, like they are reported to, and hang out in areas where hunters are not even looking or going because they're not allowed to. So I'm sure they figured out a way, just like playing chess, to strategize and find the best area to hide from hunters, move around, and thrive in the area because they're here all year round. Gets reports in.
That's right. You know, the deer have a tendency to know where the safe cornfields are, and they'll stay and hide close to the farms, knowing full well that the hunters aren't going to come in there to chase them out. But you know, the deer are familiar with the seasonal changes. They sense the weather, and I'm sure the Sasquatch do too. You know.
Oh, they have to. I mean, I'm sure they utilize the weather and in every situation. They utilize everything to their advantage. You know, every opportunity. They're opportunists. Every opportunity with weather, every advantage they use to sneak around and catch their prey and hide from us and stuff. So, what's some of the bad stuff you've heard about Sasquatch in this place? You know, and some of the good things. You know, because you hear people say, you know, they're the friendly forest giants, but you hear other people say they're cannibalistic mountain devils. You know, so what kind of stuff do you have that tells both sides?
What does the data say?
What is what?
What does the data? What does the data say, Val?
The data says just the opposite of what some of the experts say about Bigfoot, and it's not. It paints a picture, and I try to look at this objectively. Even the stuff that I post on the group site, I try to be fair and balanced. I hate to use that word, but yeah, I try to be fair and balanced with this stuff. But you can't please everybody all the time, and it would be foolish of me to sit here and tell you that these creatures, these beings are friendly all the time. They don't go out there rubbing people's backs, rubbing their toes. They don't sing songs to you. There are things that they do, and some of the behaviors that they've displayed probably cause a lot of the violent reaction that they get sometimes. For instance, there's cases where Bigfoots have stuck their hands right inside of an open window, grabbed a hold of a bedpost, and pulled the bedpost with the man and woman in the bed towards the window. For what reason? I'm not sure. But if I was on the job, if you were on the job, and you were called to a house to answer a call of a stranger reaching into your window, grabbing onto your bed and pulling your bed to your window, yeah, that person probably end up in jail someplace. I mean, that's antisocial behavior. On the other hand, if you've got an individual following you on the street, on the sidewalk, peeping at you, peeking around the corner, not saying a word to you, that would cause fear in most people. In a civilized society, that's looked at as antisocial behavior. And sure, once again, that would be cause if human beings were doing that very same kind of behavior, they'd end up in jail right away. Peeping in windows, get yourself in jail. I mean, that's not the kind of behavior you do in socialized societies and stuff. Screaming, standing outside someone's house screaming, putting the fear of death in their heart. You go to jail for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Pounding on the people's house. Are you kidding? That's the quickest way to go to jail. But if we want to call Sasquatch human beings and people, then excuse me, you have to look at everything in that realm. If these were people, and if they were eating my dog, if they took my dog that's chained out in my backyard, in my fenced backyard, eat the thing, and then leave the chain hanging off a tree branch with a collar, minus the dog, that would be upsetting to people. That would be upsetting to people. And this is the kind of stuff that people report. Another situation where people that have a farm, they have Shetland ponies and stuff. They lock the ponies up with padlocks in the corral. And then one morning they look out the window and they see the pony walking around the front yard eating the grass in the front yard, because somehow that pony, we're to believe that pony on its own stood bipedally and crawled over the corral and got itself out of the corral, and now is walking around the front yard eating on that manicured grass. Or the farmers complaining about Bigfoots sucking the milk out of the dairy cows. And these dairy farmers.
These are all antisocial behavior. It's stuff that people don't do. I mean, if they were people, they are not living by our standards of social behavior cues and manners and stuff. So, but you hear about them attacking people, killing people. Obviously, they do that. But you hear some reports of them doing some good things. Sometimes helping stranded people, maybe carrying them to safety. I've heard a few stories where the tree fell over and a Bigfoot is lifted up. So, are they individualist, or is this like is there a general consensus that they are leaning towards the kind of the bad side, I guess, where they're kind of grumpy forest giants that would kind of eat you if they wanted to?
Well, I think Sasquatches are a lot like people in this respect, that your next door neighbor might be nice, but your other next door neighbor alongside of him might be, a pistol.
Right.
The problem with this is we don't, as individuals, as human beings, we don't really know a lot about them.
Yeah.
So we don't know. You don't know what to expect. I mean, I think it's wrong. On one hand, I think it's wrong for these experts to tell us that these things are very sweet, they're very gentle, they do no harm. I think that's wrong. The same way that I think it's wrong to tell people that if they drive around with no seatbelts on, nothing's ever going to happen to you, because it never did to me, so it's not going to happen to you.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. There's no logic in that. And if you tell somebody that a being like that out there in the woods or out in your backyard is harmless, they run from you. That's like telling people, go to the zoo, go on the other side of the barrier, and they'll run from you. They'll run from you. They might lick you, but they'll run from you.
Right.
But I don't see any sense in it. To be honest with people, just be honest with people, be upfront with them, and then people don't get this notion in their head that anytime there is a shooting involving a Bigfoot, it's got to be a drunken hillbilly. I don't like that. And when I see that, it just boils inside of me, because that's the kind of idiocy that people have in their head, that anytime that there's shootings involved with Bigfoot, it's got to be a drunken hillbilly. It can't be somebody that says, hey, you're eating my dog, you're scaring my family, you grabbed a hold of my child. It can't be that. It's got to be a drunken hillbilly that does this kind of stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I hate that.
Yeah, it is serious, and I think a lot of it is people think that just because the behavior of Sasquatch is, to hide at distance and maybe not directly have confrontation, the reality is they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. If they want to hurt you bad, they're going to do it. If they want to do whatever, scare you, eat you, or help you, in some ways. But we take a lot of chances going out there and messing with them a lot.
Really, really, you do. I mean, would you prefer someone to walk through your living room, poke and look at you, stare at you, and just traipse through there? No.
Make calls and make knocks and
go
right through your stuff. I mean, I try to be respectful when I go out. I try to have the mindset of being respectful and stuff like that. But if they can read your minds and senses and stuff. But you don't want to come up with one that's just taking a nap. He's cranky. It can be pretty bad.
Well, if you come up against one that woke up on the wrong side of the nest,
yes,
you don't know what you're going to expect. But
no, exactly.
Well,
people don't get eaten up all the time. We know that.
No,
we do know that.
Yep.
But there is a storied past, apparently, behind these beings, and it's wise to be aware of that. Dave, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say certainly that the Bigfoots are capable of the entire range of behaviors, just like humans are. And you would end up with some that are good with good intentions or bad intentions. Do you think any of that has to do with going out there with good intentions or bad intentions, that they can read your intention?
Well, it's funny you asked that, because I was just on the phone with a friend of mine up in Mississauga County, and he is 100% habituator, and he gifts his friends, the forest people, with treats and objects, and they in turn do the same to him. And here's an individual that reports or he tells me that he knows for a fact they come into his house. They've been into his house, and he'll show me different objects that he finds when he wakes up that were not there when he went to sleep. He also tells me that there's times when he's intimidated because there's so many of them around his place, his house, and they're so big that all of them aren't the same. All of them don't have the same temperance. You know, some of them are nasty, some of them are ornery, some of them are antisocial. Even Janice Carter touched on that last week. Yeah. The same thing. You just never know what you're dealing with.
There must be a group consensus or some rules and stuff that individuals can't act like this or do certain things to humans. Otherwise, there's consequences, right? Because if there's different individuals like that around you, obviously they're not attacking and stuff. Some, in that case, gifting. So there must be a group consensus, like, don't attack this guy's house, don't, something like that. There must be rules or hierarchy or, leadership and boundaries, something that keeps them in line and check from blood being spilled out everywhere all the time.
There's a very good website up. It's called the Knox Theory. The Knox Theory, and one of the authors to that website is Barry Webster's friend, who is the Res Squatching.
Yep.
You're familiar with him? Yeah, I've seen you there. I've seen you post there. But some of his friends created that website. But in that website, they talk about the mountain giants and the Gugwe, the giants, very large giants. And it's his theory that Bigfoot are kept in line by another being much larger than Bigfoots that we're used to seeing. And this is a whole different realm of discussion than what we got going on here. But right. The Bigfoots, as we know, are kept in line by a much larger being. And their sole job is like a tender, like a minder. They mind. They keep in line Sasquatches. I remember one report out of Georgia. It talked about a very large Sasquatch that was found mangled in the woods. I still got that report someplace. Now I'm thinking to myself, in somebody in the town found it. They brought it into town to show everybody. But I'm thinking to myself, what kind of Bigfoot are you dealing with that goes out there and mangles another big Bigfoot? I mean, what are you dealing with?
Right.
I mean, it really.
I think you do see a hierarchy with the great apes as well. In terms of behavior, in terms of what's expected within their clans. I think that could also be applied to Bigfoot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Val, do you, from your data and your reports and all the stuff that you've gathered and researched, do you think they're more leaning towards an apish mindset or like a people where they're, like a tribal people maybe, or when I say ape, obviously people are apes, but more of an animalistic side?
Well, that's always been the great moral question, hasn't it? It's we'll just call them beings, and they seem to be relatively intelligent. We can only guess how intelligent they are. We cannot know. It's not our destiny as human beings to know this at this point. So they are they are very intelligent. I don't think we really know how intelligent they are. You know,
Right.
we do know for a fact by some of these reports they get behind the wheel of heavy construction equipment, and who knows what they're thinking, what they're dreaming. We do know that they walk hand in hand, break into some chalet, and stand on a balcony like two lovers in love, looking off into the sunset. Who knows what they're dreaming? You're looking at primal people as opposed to us human people, and we're trying to measure how smart they are. What are they thinking?
Right.
You know, they're supposed to be experts at opening up car doors, mechanical devices, and stuff. Who knows? Who knows how intelligent they are?
More than an animal?
Pardon me, Dave?
More than an animal? Val?
Yeah, probably more than an animal. Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's get some questions here in the live chat for Val and us, and so we can get those rolling. Yeah, I think maybe we are measuring it a little. Maybe we're measuring their intelligence the wrong way. They're more of a primal people, right? So we're trying to measure them by our standards, and they don't have those standards out there. But they're very smart, way more genius out in the woods than us at surviving, hiding, driving, catching food. I mean, everything. Just waiting, sitting on a trail, waiting for the game. I mean, the patience level is far beyond anything that humans are capable of. I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that that our science, specifically, the physical sciences, biology, as well as psychology, has an incredibly tough time defining them, much less understanding them. We just don't lack the information. We need a different paradigm entirely in order to understand these things.
We need a big change, more interaction than what we're getting, which is the peekaboo one, where it's hiding. It's most of the time it's hiding and stuff or bad interactions. But we need like I always say, Jane Goodall moment where they're on camera, they're coming out, they're sitting down next to you, or they're interacting, and whatever they're doing in that way, then we can actually have something to measure and more to add to this data that we can finally crunch the numbers and see.
Blake, even if it's communicating through photos, pictures, like she did with the gorillas, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Anything, any kind of communication. If there was video of that or any kind of interaction, that there would be so many more questions answered, and just to see how they would interact, how they sit down, how do they come up to you close, do they get on all fours, there's so many things that could happen. We need better interaction like that, better videos and stuff to see, how they crawl, how do they get up and down, how fast they can run. So many unanswered questions. They can talk, how they communicate, hand language, if they do sign language and stuff, how they, all that communication and stuff. We're not getting that from what we've been doing for the last 50-something years. Patterson's film is still one of the best, if not the best, evidence that's out there, especially since how old it is. So it is probably the best evidence on video because of how old it is, and it still stands the test of time. So, see if we got any questions. Make sure write your questions in all caps so we can see them better. So I guess since we're not getting any questions right now, I guess here's a good segment to talk about what we got planned for the future here at the Lost Cryptids Conservatory. with me and my wonderful team members. We're going to be doing a Bigfoot conferences here this next year when the weather gets better. We're going to be returning to Dewey Lake for the annual conference. We got some new live shows coming up with the team members, kind of like Val. We're going to be introducing them, going over their encounters. So that way you guys get to know them better. So when you guys see them on videos, you guys know exactly who they are, their background. We've got a few of them, so there should be a number of shows. That should be pretty nice, and each wonderful people. And we got a lot of places that we plan on going for expeditions and stuff, and we're gonna do some pretty serious hardcore stuff actually. Primitive in the wilderness, like you're not at a campground. Your car's not gonna be able to go there. We'll be bushwhacking it pretty much in a pretty foreboding place with a lot of bears and dark back history of missing people. So we're also going to be going to Waterloo and stuff, which a lot of us have had encounters. Val, myself, and Dave was out with Chad live streaming on Val's group, and you guys seen the silhouette of something. And in that spot, we've had a lot of encounters and stuff. So we are hopefully going to exploit that. We are going to be getting better equipment, new equipment, more cameras. We got more audio devices. So we're going to get more evidence for you guys too. And we got a wonderful team out there, and we just got reports just last week and stuff. Sent the team out there, and Chad himself, Linda, and Brian, and Gabe were out there, and they seen something. They seen something on the hill, like the famous quote: "There's something on the hill." Well, they seen something. It was really black, tall, and in an area where there was reports of eating apples out of a tree, and the neighbors were reporting it window peeking. It was very interesting stuff that we have going on. Right in an area where we've had encounters, actually. So, got a lot of stuff planned. A lot of fun stuff, right, Dave? Oh, you're on mute. Yeah, you gotta. Yeah,
There we go. There we
yeah,
go. I would say we have a great bunch of people in the group.
Oh yeah.
And just a really diverse skill set, and everybody brings something different to the game. In terms of being out there and seeing stuff, certainly we look for evidence. We look for forensic evidence, ultimately that can be put to the scientific test. But in terms of being out there and being in the bush, it does get extreme. We'll be doing more of that this summer coming up, and as well as what you mentioned, we have big shows coming up as well with some great guests as well that are lined up. So I would just say everyone tune in. Keep tuning in. Tune in 2021. We're going to be doing a lot of great things out there, and we're going to keep the ball rolling.
That is right. We got a lot of good shows coming, actually. We have some big names coming up onto these shows along with our own team members, and we're always looking for people to come on. And yeah, these expeditions, we're doing day trips, we're doing overnighters, weekends, and even a week. We're going to be doing some stuff, and we're going to be doing some pretty hardcore stuff. It's not going to be easy at all, and it'll be very interesting what we find. But we got some questions now. So Val, do you think that Sasquatch live underground?
Yes, I do. Yeah, there's a lot of data that points to caves, pits, tunnels, mines, sufficient amount that would lead anyone to consider those beings subterranean in nature.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and it makes sense of how they can disappear and stuff. And there's reports of underground tunnels and the nature of water itself. The planet is mostly water, and water seeps through rocks, and it creates cave systems and karsts, underground aquifers, underground waterways, and so there's a lot of cave systems out there that maybe they utilize, and they definitely know. And they can travel from one spot to another.
Blake, if I can expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'll go back to the Dewey Lakes monster. I'll revisit the Monroe monster, 1965, 1964, respectively. That seems to be the pinnacle in Michigan of a lot of Bigfoot Sasquatch reports. In the 1960s, if we recall, a lot of the cities were still small, and as the decades went on, a lot of mining alongside of these metro cities was going on. Mining for limestone, granite, like we're doing now. I've never seen so much mining going on as we have now, and I think that a lot of that had started with the expansion and population of people. The more people you have, the more infrastructure you need to sustain that population. You need the concrete for the interstates. You need concrete for the roads. You need concrete, lime for the cement buildings and bricks and everything else. Everything follows an order. And the more pits that you dig, the more tunnels that you slam with explosives, the more mining you do. I think it's my guess that this causes a lot more of these beings to surface from wherever they're coming from. Just
it definitely could be.
Do you think that they go underground in one place and then use the vast tunnel system to emerge like miles and miles, if not tens of miles away in another location totally?
I do. And one of the reasons why I say that, I'm looking at a situation that occurred in Michigan in 1892 that Igor Butzerov made available to us. And it was an old report from the, I want to say it was from the Mount Clemens area specifically. And it came to Russia from Paris, France. And this report, this old report, 1892, spoke of a troop. They didn't call them clan of Sasquatch. They didn't call them a group. They called them a troop. A troop of Sasquatch seen in the area of Saginaw and around the Tittabawassee River, and through the passing of warriors and hunters. I'm talking about Native Americans and hunters that would come in contact with French fur traders and explorers. They would report these beings, these very tall, hairy, homely beings that the French likened to the individuals of Australia. That's who the French likened the Sasquatch to.
The Aborigines.
Aboriginal people, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in any event, I'm thinking after reading this report and looking at some of the villages that were named, they were spotted around the Lapeer region of Oakland County. They were spotted in Mount Clemens, and they spoke of an island, which I believe is Harson's Island of Macomb County. Is it Macomb? St. Clair County. And so, as it says, the French explorer that sent this report by dispatch, meaning it had to go on the ships across the ocean to reach Paris, France. But they were writing about Sasquatch in Michigan. And they said that, this is getting into the woo, but they said that when the troop walked into these villages, and you got to remember these villages weren't like cities that we see in Michigan today. These were very small villages surrounded by a very thick, dark forest and marshes infested with snakes and insects. But anyways,
Right.
as the Sasquatch troop passed through the foliage would turn brown wherever they walked, like the leaves died, and that the bells in the town and these villages would toll at their passing. And it got to the point where the villagers got together like a vigilante group and chased the troop, the Sasquatch troop, to the river, and it had to have been up there by Harson's Island. And because they were eating the cows, draining the cows of milk, killing the dogs, and so the villagers chased them to Harson's Island. Excuse me. And they went over to Harson's. I don't know if you've ever been to Harson's Island, but it's a pretty good size. It's a small island, but it's pretty good size. But it's surrounded by water. But somehow the Sasquatches escaped unseen by the naked eye. But then again, that same troop of Sasquatch, they always traveled in troops, not one, not two, but troops. Ended up being spotted by hunters, native hunters, again, back in that Saginaw area, Menominee area, even further north. So the question was, how did they get off the island without being seen? And it's theorized that they went underwater to some cave or something and ended up, a half a state away, surfacing again.
Mm-hmm.
But which is very interesting, very, very interesting.
Yeah. Like a car system, basically, or
Yeah, car system. Yeah.
And that type of science is still not fully understood because people can't go in there. We don't have the equipment to go down into some of these waterways or the lakes that will just drain. They go in a hole and stuff, and they end up somewhere else. So there's a lot of that we don't know. We haven't explored yet. So there's a lot of cave systems, ecosystems down there that we don't know that could house Sasquatch, not only Sasquatch, but other cryptids and monsters and who knows what.
Yeah, that's not me. I don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's.
I don't want to see. I don't want to see something down there.
It's interesting. Now you said the bells of the town rang. Now, what does that mean? Were the villagers ringing that, or did they ring by themselves?
The bells.
The bells tolled.
I
Yeah,
don't know. The bells rang.
Yeah, we were losing you for a second. You said they rang by themselves?
The bells rang, and
I think he's trying to say the bells rang and
as
the
they
crops
passed through
died.
through the window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the crops would wither away and the bells would ring. So
It's very bullish.
that begs the question: is that infrasound? Is that frequency? Is that vibration that the bells are vibrating and ringing? Is that maybe that could be it? Or I'm just kind of putting that out there. Oh man, we lost him.
I think we lost Val for a second.
Yeah, he'll jump back on. I
Yeah,
don't know if you guys can
definitely.
hear. I don't know if you guys can hear the little squatch in the background or not, but he's fighting sleep, man. full-time dad and stuff. So it's great stuff.
That's what happens, and that affects ultimately everything, your ability to get out sometimes, and what you can do, and you got to take care of the kids.
Being a dad is fun and great. I love it and stuff.
And enjoy it while you can, because I'll tell you what, it's over way too soon there.
I know already some things.
Yeah, we got you back there, Val.
Hello.
We can hear you, Val.
Okay.
So Val, I was saying maybe they use some type of vibrational frequency or something. The bells are ringing, they're vibrating or something. Who knows?
There's a couple of reports that I found in Michigan that the witness reported he reported waking up to smell burned rubber, and went outside and seen what he thought was a Sasquatch, and the Sasquatch looked at him, charged at him, and the last thing that he remembered was standing outside his door. But then when he woke up, he was in his bed. He had some scratches on him. His shoes were muddy, but he doesn't remember how he got there. He just lost this time. And that is a report in Michigan, and it wasn't the only one like that. There is another one that is similar. It was a husband and wife that were hiking around their house. They eat supper, dinner, or something. They go out for a hike, and they encounter a similar thing. They see a bright light. They seen a Sasquatch being, and they encounter hostile reactions to it and it to them, and the next thing they know, they find themselves back at their house again. These are pretty bizarre things.
Do you think that this has to do with EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, that are used by Squatches, and what kind of correlations do you find in the data, Val, that would suggest a correlation between power lines and Squatch sightings?
Well, there's a good number of reports that indeed do occur around power lines. I call them utility lines. It could be pipelines. It could be electrical lines. But one thing for certain, in that specific area, it's always straight grid lines. Like power lines are straight line grids. Pipelines could be straight line too. And so I found that fascinating that some of these, probably over 100, 150 reports, all point at power lines of some sort, or utility lines or something, which is very interesting. Railroads is another one. Again, we're looking at almost straight lines, although they can curve and twist and turn and stuff. But these are real high points to Sasquatch hunting, where you have railroad tracks, where you have power lines or utility lines. That's where you're going to see them, because that's what the data says. Not just in Michigan, but all across the United States, North America. Same thing.
Do you think that they use the power in order to zap people and maybe erase their memories, or make them forget things, or put them to sleep?
Dave, I really don't know. It's just, I do see a lot of reports. Excuse me. I do see a lot of reports where UFO is mentioned. Now, we can extrapolate whatever we want about that, but the fact of the matter is, I do see a lot of reports, the two coinciding together with one another in a report. And you know, people don't want to hear that, and it's beyond me why I even talk about it, because it upsets people to hear that. You know, I don't really care about UFOs. I mean, it's never really interested me. I have no interest in it. But the fact of the matter is, when you start looking at Bigfoot reports and all kinds of them, there is a dichotomy there. You know, you'll see all kinds of stuff there.
If you see it in the data, you see it in the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Val, what's your thoughts on orbs? What's the data show on orbs and Bigfoot too?
Well, I don't have a lot of data on orbs. I call them balls of lights, but there's a few. There's a few, and as an individual not involved with Bigfoot, I always seen orbs in homes, and quite frankly, I wouldn't buy a second home or a fixer-upper property if I went in there like I usually do and snap pictures in every room of the house. And if I look at these photos, these digital photos, and if I see orbs in there, I'm not buying that house. They can have it. I might go in there and do a background investigation on the house to find out what kind of dirty went on in that house years ago. But if it's got issues and stuff, I don't want it. I don't want any part of it.
You're probably aware, but orbs were reported in the Missouri Monster case quite frequently. And in fact, a guy had a Sasquatch chase him into his den, and he had a shotgun, I believe, or a rifle, and had shot the Sasquatch, which promptly then disappeared and turned into an orb and flew away. Now, this gets into the woo areas of Sasquatch, without a doubt. What are your feelings on that, Val?
Well, I guess it's possible, Dave. I haven't seen a Bigfoot and an orb together, but I don't exclude that either, the possibility either. You know, when you're looking at this stuff, you're looking at it with an open mind. You either look at it with 1 foot in it, but you can't exclude any of that stuff. It's just a whole great big theater of special events and special effects and stuff that possibilities are just enormous. So
I think
Yeah,
that
right.
I think that's the problem with them trying to apply the scientific method to Bigfoot research, in that the scientific method says that you can conduct the same experiment any number of times and get the same result. The problem with Bigfoot sightings is that they're all different, and they are not replicated exactly each time.
that is true.
That's exactly right. So Dave, or Val, what do you think the eating habits are in winter, in the Upper Peninsula?
In the Upper Peninsula?
Yeah, in general, though. In winter.
Well, the animals, the deer and everything else they could find, rats, rodents, anything that they could find, any vegetation they could find, any farmers that have grain and any rubbish they could find, they scavenge everything. They don't starve. I don't believe these things starve. Look, they've been around here for probably 1 billion years, and they did fine without Myers and McDonald's and Wendy's and gummy bears and all that stuff before we got here. They won't starve, and that brings me to the point where, from a Southeast Michigan perspective, that these things live so close to us that we don't even know. Some of us would shiver. Some of us would have jello legs if we figured out that there was a Sasquatch, just a couple blocks down, living out there, so close to us, eating the junk, eating the rubbish, the fast food stuff, feeding off the metro dumps. They're so close to us.
They are.
And you talk about them starving up north. They'll probably find some settlements wherever the people are living, the little towns and stuff. They find food. They don't starve.
Yeah, I don't think they starve. They're well adapted and they thrive, and they're very.
Yes, they will.
They will use every opportunity. If not, if they can't find any food, I'm sure they move on and find better pastures. So.
I think that goes back to show their intelligence as well. That they are intelligent creatures.
Yes, they are.
They are. Here's one. Have any reports from the Highland Wreck area, White Lake?
What county? What county is that? I've heard of that. Is that close to? Is that Highland area a ski resort area? Is that next? Is that next to the Renaissance area? Renaissance festival area?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been reports there. Yeah.
They're kind of everywhere here.
Yeah, they are.
They're here, lower Michigan, northern Michigan, and in the Upper Peninsula. Thriving everywhere, like you said, residential metro areas too. The farmlands, they're everywhere. Maybe they do. I mean, they do probably go underground. There must be something, because it seems like there's just more here than what you would think would be living in the woods, just without going underground. Unless they're just really that good at what they do.
What we need most is to whoever's listening to this video, is we need people to come forward and make a report. Get a hold of Blake, David, or myself, and share your Michigan Bigfoot report with us. If you're not sure about how to write the report, ask one of these guys. They'll show you. But we need people to come forward. There's a lot of reports out there that aren't being shared, that aren't being heard about, and really, we should all hear more about these, because it's just the right thing to do. You need to hear these things. You need to know that when you go out there, you might see these things. You might become shocked. Then again, you might not. Who knows? But it's a good thing to tell people. It's a good thing to talk about it. Find a place where you're comfortable to post your report and share it with somebody. And
that was the great thing with Dewey Lake, that we did get information that came out of Dewey Lake in relation to previously unknown reports. That was really good information, and no one would have known it unless those persons had chosen to step forward.
Yeah, a lot of good reports come from the public once they hear other people talk about it and stuff. It inspires them to come forth and share their report and stuff, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah, and you have to let people know. I mean, this creature is around residential areas, around the children, our pets, our homes, properties. It only helps. It doesn't help anyone if you just hide it away. Keep your report from being wrote up. It's in your head. You know about it, but it doesn't help anyone not telling about it.
If your street if
Go
your
ahead.
street down the road had a large pothole that was tearing up people's cars, causing injuries, would you? I'm speaking in general to everybody watching this video now or next month. Would you prefer to keep that to yourself, keep it quiet, or would you look forward and look at the people, look at the possibilities of the people's lives that you might have changed by not allowing them to incur damage? Maybe they can't afford to pay for that damage. Maybe they'd get hurt. Maybe they won't get hurt because you allowed them to know and be aware of the situation down the road. And that's the way I look at the Bigfoot reports. If you know about them in your area, share it with somebody so they don't have to be surprised or shocked.
Exactly. It could probably save a life too. And hopefully, and plus it'll add to the data, it'll add to what information you can gather from it, learn behavior patterns, and more to this mystery. So I think with that, I think we'll probably be ending the show now, and definitely gonna have to have you on again, Val. And we'll be doing more shows with you, of course, as co-hosts. And
Val's got a lot of great stories. A lot of incredible great stories in reports that he had taken and reports that he's documented.
That's right. Val, where can we find you in this work and your data points and all that?
Well, I'm on the Facebook at Gumshoe Bigfoot Michigan Reports and Data, and they go in there and punch up that name, and it'll direct them to the site where we can be found, and stop in there and say hello.
Yeah, that's right. I'll add a link to the description here in a little bit, so it'll be popped up here. And it's a great place. We go live sometimes out in the field in Vals group, also in my group, Lost Cryptids Conservatory. Dave, we also have a merchandise store online with some awesome T-shirts and stuff. Where can we find that?
We do. That's a Square site, and it's on our Facebook page. There's links where you can go to our store. You can purchase all of your Christmas items, and including T-shirts. So we have COVID face masks, which are a really good seller, lanyards and stickers, and all sorts of really cool Sasquatch swag for that person in your house to put under the tree for them.
Yeah, that's right. And these are made here at home at the Lost Cryptids Conservatory's shirt warehouse, which is Dave's house with Dave. Yeah, he makes all of them, and awesome process. It's really nice to do and really cool. So we try to give you guys high quality stuff at reasonable prices, and we're always trying to expand and do new stuff here, and that's what we got planned for next year. And we're even gonna try to take some people out too. So maybe some of the people lucky in the chat might be able to actually win a free trip with us. You come out with us, and we'll take you out to some of these spots and have a good time. Try not to get too scared, and most importantly, try to find evidence of Sasquatch. So thank you everyone for watching the show, and tune in next week. We're gonna have some more awesome guests lined up, and probably another interview with our own team members. So look forward to that. Don't have days lined up, but we will get that out soon on posts on Facebook and everywhere else. So thank you everyone once again for this live show and for enjoying the content on YouTube later.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you, Blake, Dave.
Yeah. You guys have a wonderful night. See you later.
Thank you, guys.